History was made tonight on Monday Night Raw. After months of silence, Roman Reigns finally returned, and the WWE Universe was left in absolute shock. The Tribal Chief didn't just walk back into the arena, he owned it. This was not just a comeback, it was a statement. Smash that subscribe button right now because what Roman Reigns just did may have shifted the entire future of WWE. It all began as Raw was heading toward its final segment. The lights dimmed. The crowd rose in anticipation, unsure of what was coming. Then, the familiar pulse of the head of the table theme hit and the arena exploded. Roman Reigns stepped through the curtain, dressed in all black, a slow, calculated look in his eyes. The silence that had surrounded him for months had finally broken, and he was ready to speak. For weeks, WWE had been teasing a power vacuum on Raw. With Seth Rollins running rampant and Paul Heyman seemingly pulling the strings from the shadows, fans were wondering when, or if, Reigns would return. Rumors swirled. Injury? Retirement? Strategic silence? But tonight, all speculation ended. Roman Reigns entered the ring to thunderous cheers, but he didn't speak right away. He let the energy build. The camera zoomed in on his face. No smile. No smirk. Just a cold, focused gaze. And then he picked up the mic. "You all thought I was gone for good," he said, his voice low, controlled. "You thought this place would thrive without me, but Raw without Roman Reigns? That's like a kingdom without a king." The crowd roared. He continued, calling out not just Seth Rollins, but Paul Heyman directly, accusing them of trying to rewrite the legacy of the Bloodline in his absence. "You tried to erase me," he growled. "You tried to build something in my shadow, but shadows always disappear when the light returns. And I am the light." But the most shocking moment came next. As the crowd chanted "Welcome back," Roman raised his hand and pointed toward the stage. The lights flickered. The Tron glitched. Then chaos. A group of masked figures emerged from the crowd and surrounded the ring. Rollins' security raced down the ramp, only to be obliterated. One by one, the masked men revealed themselves, not just newcomers, but recruited enforcers handpicked by Reigns, dominant, dangerous, and loyal only to him. The message was crystal clear: the Tribal Chief isn't alone anymore. Reigns raised his arms, the arena bathed in red lights, as he declared that the war for Raw had begun. "You built this house while I was gone? That's cute," he said. "Now watch me burn it down." This was no ordinary return. This was a hostile takeover. Reigns didn't come back to pick up where he left off, he came back to take everything. And backstage, the panic was visible. Seth Rollins was seen watching the chaos unfold on a monitor, shaking his head, jaw clenched. Even Paul Heyman looked rattled, caught off guard by the ferocity of Reigns' reemergence. Insiders say Roman's return wasn't scheduled. This was a calculated ambush, planned quietly, executed perfectly. Triple H was reportedly aware of Reigns' comeback but kept it under wraps to protect the impact of the moment. And impact it had. Tonight, Monday Night Raw was no longer about matches, it was about power. Roman Reigns has returned, not as a champion, but as a conqueror. He's done being the hunted. Now, he's doing the hunting. And as Raw fades to black, one question echoes through the WWE Universe. Who can stop Roman Reigns now? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Was this the greatest return in modern WWE history? What does it mean for Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, and the entire Raw roster? Smash that like button and subscribe for all the fallout from Roman Reigns' shocking return. This isn't just another episode of Raw, this is the beginning of something much bigger. Don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe now. The silence was never innocent. For 100 days, Roman Reigns, the head of the table, the Tribal Chief, the defining figure of a generation, vanished from the WWE landscape. No tweet. No injury report. No press conference. Not a whisper from the Bloodline. Just a void. A thunderous absence that echoed louder than any entrance music. And yet tonight, without hype or advertisement, the silence cracked wide open. Roman Reigns returned. But not to SmackDown. He walked through the curtain, on Raw. No one knew what to expect when the arena lights dimmed. No pyro. No commentary cues. Just a hush that swept across the crowd like a storm preparing to land. And then, the opening beats of the Truth Reigns dropped. A familiar chill ran down the spines of those who remembered what it felt like to believe in the Bloodline. And just like that, the man who had ruled over WWE with cold, strategic brilliance reappeared, dressed in black, walking through fire, but with no smile, no outstretched arms. Only eyes, focused, unblinking, and angry. Tonight marks the end of the silence. But what happened in the 100 days leading up to this moment? Let's rewind. It was the night after WrestleMania. Roman had lost. The Bloodline had cracked. Solo Sikoa stood tall with Jacob Fatu by his side. Paul Heyman had already vanished into Seth Rollins' shadow. Roman, for the first time in years, didn't have the gold, the power, or the loyalty. And then, he was gone. No official statement followed. WWE aired tribute packages but refused to call it a retirement. On-air talent danced around his absence. Personal time, they said. Undisclosed reasons. But backstage, whispers erupted. Some said Roman was dealing with a private health crisis. Others believed he was negotiating new power behind the scenes. And a select few feared the truth was more painful. Roman had lost control of the empire he built. The Bloodline, once united under his iron will, had become lawless. Solo Sikoa's faction declared war on everything Roman created, removing all traces of the tribal chief's regime. His banners disappeared from the locker room walls. Heyman's silence was unsettling. Jey Uso chose Raw. Jimmy went rogue. And Jacob Fatu, a wild card nobody expected, seemed to be rising as the new alpha. Roman's kingdom had become fractured territory. And he? Exiled. A fallen emperor watching chaos from afar. But tonight, that emperor returned. And he didn't come to reclaim his throne quietly. The camera caught the expressions in the Raw locker room as the news broke: stunned silence, side eyes, hurried conversations. Seth Rollins, the current face of Raw, stood backstage in disbelief, barely able to respond to a producer's question. Roman had not returned through proper channels. He hadn't cleared it with creative. He hadn't told his family. He had simply shown up. Uninvited. But why Raw? Why not SmackDown, the house that Roman built, the show he dominated for nearly 4 years? Because Raw was where the betrayal began. It was here that Paul Heyman aligned himself with Seth Rollins. Here that Solo Sikoa first hinted at rebellion. It was on Raw that Roman's legacy was mocked, rewritten, and finally, replaced. By walking into Raw tonight, Roman sent a message louder than any promo: you may have buried the tribal chief, but I'm still breathing. And yet, he didn't say a single word. He walked down the ramp with eyes locked on the commentary table. Michael Cole fell silent. Corey Graves stared like he was witnessing a ghost. Roman circled the ring but didn't enter it. He stood at ringside, staring into the crowd, letting the moment ferment. Security didn't move. No referee dared interfere. Even the production crew looked to the back, uncertain if this was sanctioned or an ambush. And then the Jumbotron lit up. A split screen. One side, Roman Reigns. The other, Solo Sikoa, watching live from a backstage monitor. His face betrayed no fear, but the subtle clench of his jaw, the narrowing of his eyes, said everything. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. In the weeks leading up to tonight, internal WWE memos began surfacing, never confirmed, always redacted. Mentions of a sealed return clause, an unannounced executive override, and most chilling of all, Phase 2, the final Bloodline reckoning. No one knew what that meant. Until now. Because Roman didn't walk down that ramp alone tonight. A shadow emerged behind him. Hood up. shoulders squared. A second figure in step with the tribal chief. Speculation erupted instantly online. Is it Jimmy Uso? Is it Jacob Fatu? Is this a new faction? But as the figure slowly lifted the hood, jaws dropped. Zilla Fatu. The son of the Late Umaga. A name whispered in training circles for months. A legacy figure long rumored to join WWE, now standing beside Roman Reigns like a storm waiting to strike. Zilla Fatu didn't speak either. He just nodded once toward Roman, then raised the one-finger salute, but not to Solo. To Roman. The meaning was unmistakable. Zilla wasn't pledging allegiance to the new bloodline. He was declaring war on it. And just like that, the wrestling world flipped. What began as a night of nostalgia turned into the unveiling of a new warpath. Not for gold. Not for brand supremacy. But for identity, blood, and honor. Because Roman Reigns, after 100 days of being erased, has returned not as champion, but as the reckoning. Backstage, chaos spread like wildfire. Seth Rollins reportedly refused to comment, while Paul Heyman was spotted in a closed-door meeting with WWE executives. Solo Sikoa, flanked by Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga, ordered all cameras to be cut from his area. But one mic caught a single phrase. He wants war. We give him fire. It wasn't just a return. It was a challenge. A line drawn in the sand between Roman's legacy and Solo's uprising. And WWE, whether it's ready or not, now stands at the precipice of a civil war that will tear through families, alliances, and legends. So the question becomes: where has Roman Reigns truly been? What did he see in the silence? And what has he returned to destroy? The next chapter isn't about gold. It's about vengeance. About blood. And for the first time in years, it seems the head of the table is not here to sit at it. He's here to flip it. The exile was self-imposed, but it was never peaceful. For 100 days, Roman Reigns didn't just vanish from WWE. He retreated into silence so deep, even his own blood couldn't reach him. Sources closest to the Inoue family say he stopped returning calls. Turned off his phone. Refused media appearances. Some say he flew to a private villa in Hawaii. Others whisper of a retreat in Samoa, far beyond the reach of any press or camera. But one detail remained consistent across every insider account. Roman Reigns was broken. Not by a match. Not by injury. But by betrayal. The moment Paul Heyman turned his back, aligning himself with Seth Rollins and Solo Sikoa, was the moment the tribal chief fractured. And when Jey Uso walked away, refusing to acknowledge Roman or Solo, it wasn't just a storyline. It was personal. The empire Roman spent 4 years building had collapsed inward. And yet, he didn't speak. Because the greatest warriors don't scream when they bleed. They wait. They recover. And when they return, they do so not for applause, but for revenge. While the bloodline crumbled and Raw forged ahead with new champions and alliances, Roman was rewriting the future behind closed doors. No camera caught the meetings. No document was leaked. But slowly, silently, something was forming. According to a former WWE producer who chose to remain anonymous, Roman submitted a request for creative separation from existing storylines. Not because he wanted time off, but because he wanted independence. Freedom to choose the terms of his return. Freedom to re-emerge not as a character, but as a reckoning force. It wasn't about titles anymore. It was about the truth. And in the shadows of exile, Roman began to gather something new. Something no one in the WWE universe saw coming. The new Shield? The true bloodline? A family we never knew? Enter Zilla Fatu. In recent months, Zilla had been training quietly at Booker T's Reality of Wrestling Academy. Whispers circulated about WWE scouts watching him. But nothing was confirmed. Until now. Roman didn't just return with a new ally. He returned with a descendant of war. Zilla's father, Umaga, was a force of chaos. A destroyer. A legacy of pain and power. And now, his son walks beside Roman Reigns. Not as a tribute. As a weapon. And yet, Zilla was only the beginning. Backstage reports now confirm that Roman held secret meetings not only with Zilla but with Jacob Fatu, before his allegiance to Solo Sikoa was ever televised. Their meeting reportedly took place in Florida, far from Stamford. It was private. No PR handlers. No officials. Just two descendants of the same bloodline, staring across a table, deciding if the family's future could survive another civil war. Roman made his offer. Jacob declined. And days later, Jacob Fatu debuted under Solo's command. For Roman, that decision cut deeper than any spear or super kick. Because Jacob wasn't just another cousin. He was the last wild card. The one man Roman thought would choose loyalty over chaos. Instead, he chose fire. And so Roman disappeared again, deeper this time. But not to sulk. To prepare. According to sources within WWE corporate, Roman filed a confidential clause titled Event Horizon. A codename for an emergency creative override, something only a select few top-tier superstars possess. What it means is chilling. Roman can appear on either brand at any time, without warning, for one final arc. Tonight, that clause was executed. And Raw is only the beginning. The emotional core of this comeback isn't just shock value. It's heartbreak. Roman didn't return to reclaim a championship. He returned to bury a narrative. The idea that he's finished. That the bloodline no longer needs him. That Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman have replaced him as the heartbeat of WWE. But what they don't understand is this. Roman Reigns is not just a name. He's a scar. A memory you can't outrun. And when he appeared tonight, the air in the arena shifted. Not just because of nostalgia. But because every wrestler backstage felt it. This man is back for something darker. In exclusive footage leaked from a production monitor, Roman is seen backstage after his appearance. Alone in a corridor, speaking quietly to Zilla Fatu. No microphones. But one sentence was clearly lip-read. We don't reclaim the throne, we burn it. This is not the Roman of 2020. This is not the head of the table. This is a man who has lost everything, and now wants nothing but war. And what about Paul Heyman? The man who once called Roman Reigns the greatest champion of all time was noticeably absent tonight. Sources say he locked himself in a production truck as soon as Roman's music hit. Others say he boarded a private vehicle and left the arena before Raw even went off the air. But the damage is done. Roman knows. Heyman chose Seth. And that betrayal may cost him more than his job. Because if Roman is here to end anything, it's not just the false bloodline Solo Sikoa commands. It's the lies that built it. The tribal council is gone. The ceremonial lay? Burned. The elders? Silent. The family is fractured, but not finished. And with Roman back, the question is no longer will he stay? It's, how far will he go to destroy what replaced him? It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Seth Rollins was backstage, prepping for a promo about his WrestleMania victory when a production assistant whispered in his ear. He's here. No name. No explanation. But Seth didn't need one. He felt it. In the walls. In the silence. Roman Reigns had returned. Security was already in position. Not for the crowd. For the roster. No one, not even WWE executives, knew if this was a storyline return or a calculated hijack. Seth's phone buzzed. It was a text. Anonymous. No contact ID. We're not finished. I gave you your moment. Now it's mine. R. It was the first contact Seth had received from Roman in nearly 3 months. And it sent shivers down his spine. What no one on television knew, what the WWE Universe could only speculate, was that the story between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins had never truly ended. Not after the Shield. Not after WrestleMania 31. And certainly not after Seth laughed in Roman's face following Paul Heyman's betrayal. For Roman, that laugh was a wound. A wound that festered every single day he sat in silence. Watched his kingdom fall apart. Saw Seth ascend. And now? He wasn't just here to reclaim territory. He was here to confront the one man who claimed he had surpassed him. The confrontation didn't happen in the ring. It happened in the shadows. In a dim hallway near gorilla position, Roman stood waiting. Cameras weren't allowed. Security tried to intervene, but Zilla Fatu blocked them off. What followed was a whispered storm. Words that will never be aired. But insiders confirm the two stood face to face for nearly 4 minutes. No shouting. Just breathing. And then, Roman said it aloud. You sold out the soul of this company. I bled for it. You bled for ratings. Seth didn't respond immediately. Witnesses say he just looked at Roman. Quiet, serious, calculating. Then he stepped back, offered the faintest smirk, and simply said, "You're late." And with that, he walked away. But Roman didn't. He stood still. Stoic. Unshaken. That moment, those 6 words, weren't defiance. They were bait. Because Rollins thought he was still in control. He isn't. What the world doesn't yet realize is this: Roman Reigns didn't return for retribution. He returned because something else is coming. And Seth? He's just the first to face the fallout. Within hours of Roman's return, WWE's digital team found themselves scrambling. Clips of Roman's entrance were pulled from the usual post-show uploads. Social media managers received urgent orders from Stamford: do not post footage until approved. Why? Because there's more to this return than what met the eye. According to a leaked internal memo from WWE's creative division, Roman's return is tied to a storyline arc labeled Endgame Protocol. An unreleased narrative designed over a year ago, but shelved when Roman took his leave. It's reportedly a final arc for Roman Reigns. One that doesn't end in a championship win, but a reckoning that spans both brands. And central to that arc? Seth Rollins. For months, Seth believed he'd outlasted Roman. That with Heyman and Solo at his side, the tribal chief would never return. But here's what Seth doesn't know. Roman never left the game. He just left the table. And now he's come back to flip it. Leaked screenshots from internal WWE text threads, sent anonymously to a wrestling journalist, reveal a chilling exchange allegedly between a creative exec and an agent assigned to Roman's segment. Agent: so we're doing the face-off live? Exec: no. Not yet. Keep them apart. Let it simmer. He's not ready to strike. Not yet. Agent: then what's tonight? Exec: tonight's the tremor. The quake comes later. And when it comes, it will be seismic. Insiders suggest that Roman's next move isn't a singles match. It's not even a traditional feud. It's a takeover. He's recruiting. Quietly. Strategically. Zilla Fatu was the opening shot. But more names are being whispered: Lance Anoa'i, Famiko. Even outside stars from NJPW and M.